crowd giving an ovation to Chuck NEVITT, 7'5".
The NBA is home to the tallest people in the world, but height alone doesn't usually translate to greatness on the court. There are many examples of this throughout the league's history. So in today's video, we'll go over the 10 tallest players who played in the NBA, but were trash. Number 10. Eddie Tavares, 7 foot 3 inches. The Cape Verdean center Eddie Tavares played in the NBA as recently as 2017, so his name might ring a bell with some of you. He was selected with the 43rd pick of the 2014 draft by the Atlanta Hawks, largely thanks to his size and promising play he showed while playing in Spain the previous season. Unfortunately though, Eddie could never prove his worth in the NBA, and despite spending 3 years in the league, he only managed to appear in 13 games total. Most of his time playing in the US was spent in the then NBA D-League, where Eddie showed flashes of brilliance on the defensive end, winning the D-League Defensive Player of the Year award. This earned him a spot on the Cavs, who signed him in April of 2017. In his debut, Eddie impressed, recording 10 boards and 6 blocks in 24 minutes. But due to a hand injury, he ended up missing the playoffs and was waived by the team at the end of the season. Tavares has since returned to Spain and is now one of the most imposing big men in Europe. One has to wonder what would have happened if he was given the proper chance in the NBA. Number 9. Keith Kloss, 7 foot 3 inches. Just like Eddie, Keith Kloss was a monster on the defensive end anywhere he played, except the NBA. In fact, during his time with the Central Connecticut State University in the mid-90s, Kloss became one of the best shot blockers in NCAA history, and his 5.87 blocks per game that he averaged through his 2 years in college is still an NCAA record. Even though many coaches would tell you that defense wins championships, Kloss went undrafted in the '96 draft, mainly because he only weighed just over 210 pounds. For comparison, Kevin Durant is 240 pounds and 5 inches shorter, and still looks skinny, so you can imagine how slim Keith was. Kloss did manage to find himself on an NBA roster though, as he spent 3 seasons as a backup center for the Clippers in the late 90s. But despite getting solid playing time, the physicality of the league was too much for him to handle, and he failed to make a huge impact on the court. His NBA career ended in 2000 with averages of a measly 4 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 block per game. Number 8. Aleksandar Radojevich, 7 foot 3 inches. When you think of an NBA draft bust, names like Kwame Brown and Anthony Bennett are first to come to mind. But not many people know one of the biggest busts in recent memory. Aleksandar Radojevich, the Bosnian center, was a lottery pick for the Raptors in 1999, who believed that with his size alone, Alexander could instantly make an impact on the court. But boy were they wrong. Radojevich only appeared in 3 games for the team that season, scoring less than 10 total points. Realizing that things aren't working out for him in the NBA, Alexander returned to Europe where he played in Slovenia, Italy, Germany, and Greece. He was actually pretty good there, which earned him another shot at the NBA, this time with the Utah Jazz. However, the big fella was disappointing once again and only appeared in 12 games, which he averaged a single point in over 10 minutes per game. Number 7. HASHEEM THABEET, 7 foot 3 inches. Talking of NBA draft busts, HASHEEM THABEET's right up there with the biggest of all of them, both in physical size and how big of a bust they were. The Memphis Grizzlies selected him with the 2nd overall pick in the 2009 draft, thinking that he would fit perfectly in their grit and grind system. But just like the Raptors 10 years earlier, they couldn't be more wrong. Despite getting consistent playing time in his rookie season, HASHEEM was simply flat out bad on the court, averaging just 3 points and 3 rebounds per game, which was hardly enough for a number 2 pick. Despite showing potential as a shot blocker, the Grizzlies soon accepted their mistake and shipped him out to Houston. A few years later, HASHEEM could be seen chilling on the Thunder bench with the likes of KD and Russ, and that's pretty much the only thing he'll be remembered for in his NBA career. Number 6. Priest Lauderdale, 7 foot 4 inches. It seems like the Hawks have a thing for abnormally tall centers, as they also selected Priest Lauderdale with their 1st-round pick in 1996. Lauderdale was not only a very tall man, but was also huge, weighing well over 300 pounds, and was a dominant force in college. In the NBA though, he wasn't the one that was doing the dominating. He spent only 2 seasons in the league with the Hawks and Nuggets, only averaging 3 points and 1 rebound per game. You'd think that a man of his size would at least be able to grab a few more boards if nothing else, but even that was too much to ask from the Chi-Town big man. Fortunately for him, his size alone meant that there was always going to be a place for him on a basketball roster. If not in the NBA, then somewhere else. And Priest spent over a decade playing all over the world until 2011 when he retired. Do you have any idea why these players were so bad on the court despite towering over most of their opponents? Let us know your opinions in the comment section below. Number 5. Peter John Ramos, 7 foot 5 inches. It's a little unfortunate that a man who's one of the most prominent basketball players in Puerto Rico's history finds himself on a video like this, but the big fella was indeed trash in his short period in the league. Perhaps the NBA was too big of a challenge for a then 19-year-old center, After all, it's well known that big men take a long time to adjust to the NBA. And even though he was much taller than his competition, the same was the case for our man Peter John Ramos. He only appeared in 6 games for the Washington Wizards in the 2004-2005 season, hardly enough to expect some significant contribution from the poor guy. Ramos did leave a mark with his play in the US, but unfortunately it wasn't in the NBA. He did, however, play very well in the D-League, where he was one of the best centers for a brief period of time. After 2 years there, Ramos went on to have a very successful career overseas, mainly in China and his native Puerto Rico, where he's still playing today. Number 4. Sim BHULLAR, 7 foot, 5 inches. If you followed the NBA in 2015, or if you played NBA 2K15, there's no way you haven't heard of a monstrous Indian center called Sim BHULLAR. When the Kings decided to give him a chance before the start of the season, BHULLAR instantly became a sensation among fans, especially in India, as he was set to become the first player of Indian descent to make it to the NBA. Sim was not only huge in India, but with the rest of fans as well, who couldn't wait to see what kind of impact the 7'5", 360-pound giant would have on the floor. But his enormous size also led to his downfall in the NBA, as he was too slow to ever become a useful player at that level. The Kings appeared committed to working with him so he could get in better shape, but in the end, they quit on him after just 2 preseason games, marking the end of Sim's short journey in the NBA. BHULLAR is still only 27 years old and is currently playing in Taiwan. Number 3. PAVEL PODKOLZIN, 7 foot, 5 inches. Standing at 7 feet and 5 inches tall, PAVEL PODKOLZIN is one of the tallest players who ever played in the NBA. But just like the other guys on this list, he failed to utilize his height to become a serviceable player. He was selected with the 21st pick of the 2004 draft by the Utah Jazz and then promptly traded to the Mavericks. Pavel, who suffers from acromegaly, which is a disease that occurs due to excess growth hormone, was actually expected to be a higher pick in the draft due to his size, blocking ability, and strength, but fell late in the draft because of concerns about his health. While his disease didn't stop him to have a long basketball career, that unfortunately didn't happen in the NBA, as he only played 6 games for the Mavs in the span of 2 seasons. Pavel spent the remainder of his playing career for minor clubs in Russia and is currently a free agent. Number 2. Chuck NEVITT, 7 foot, 5 inches. After joining the NBA in 1982, Chuck NEVITT became the tallest player who ever played up until Manute Bol showed up 3 years later. He's also the longest tenured NBA player on this list, as he spent 11 years in the league, even becoming a champion with the Lakers in 1985. Unfortunately, not all was as good as it sounds, because his height is literally the only reason Chuck was able to last for so long. After all, no one's seen a 7'5" player in the league before, and teams weren't as quick to let someone like that go as they probably would be today. Apart from his height, Chuck really had no other skill that he brought to his teams. He was as slow as they come, and the only thing he was able to do apart from jogging up and down the floor is to block a few shots here and there thanks to his height. In his 11 seasons, he only played around 5 minutes per game, averaging just 1.5 points, 1.5 rebounds, and 0.7 blocks per game. Number 1. SLAVKO VRANES, 7 foot, 6 inches. Standing at 7 foot and 6 inches, SLAVKO VRANES is the 3rd tallest player who ever played in the NBA. But that's only if you count his one appearance with the Portland Trail Blazers as playing in the NBA. SLAVKO was selected in the 2nd round of the 2003 draft by the New York Knicks. But the team soon realized that SLAVKO didn't bring much else to the table except for his height, and they ended up waiving him in December of that same year before he ever set foot in Madison Square Garden. Just a few months later, though, the Portland Trail Blazers decided to give him another shot. After all, it's not every season that you have a 7'6" guy chilling in the free agent pool. So they gave him a 10-day contract to check him out. However, apparently, they weren't too impressed either, as he only got to play 3 minutes with the Blazers, in which he didn't record a point, or a rebound, or any other stat except for a personal foul. That marked the end of SLAVKO's infamous journey in the NBA, which ended before it even started, and he would later return to Serbia, where he also struggled to achieve anything significant and was warming the bench most of the time, which his teammates surely appreciated, as it can get pretty cold in Serbia. Who do you think is the worst abnormally tall man who ever played in the NBA? Is there someone that we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.